Brandon is okay. I think we're all here. Who are we missing? That's about it. This is our regular group.
Yeah.
So we will start. It always starts off with a lot of people, you know, but it usually ends up with a few, which is the way life works most of the time. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, here we go. I'm just trying to organize this so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, very good. Okay. Om Agnati Marandasya Ganagana Sarakaya Chakshurin Meditamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master is opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Namom Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pasacha Desatarine Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. In case some of you don't know, the last prayer that I said is Vanchakalpatrubhyascha. It's a very beautiful prayer offering obeisances to all the assembled devotees and recognizing that devotees are an ocean of mercy. So it's a prayer that devotees really relish, and sometimes devotees will start a conversation and they'll just, instead of saying the whole prayer, they'll just go Vanchakalpa. So that's, you know, our Western mentality. We tend to go to shortcuts. It's very funny. In New Vrindavan years ago, there was we were using a lot of English instead of the Sanskrit, and some of the initiated names were in English. And one devotee was named Eternal Love. That name was too long, so she ended up with an abbreviation, ET. Terrible. I'm very embarrassed that we used that, but that's what happened. So we're up to chapter 3. Isn't that amazing? We're already up to chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. The first chapter set the scene, which is very important. It's important to understand the context in which a major event takes place, what to speak of a major spiritual event. It helps us to understand the instructions, actually, and appreciate the instructions that we're receiving. And then the second chapter was about Arjuna being completely bewildered and accepting a spiritual master. And here we have a picture of Arjuna in that bewildered state. And I love looking at this picture because if you look at Arjuna's quiver, you know, the container for his arrows, you can see that it's kind of flopped over sideways and his arrows are falling out. He's given up. His bow is leaned up against the chariot, and the arrows are falling out of his quiver. So he's bewildered. And Krishna instructs him, to begin with, Arjuna, you have to understand that the soul is distinct from the body and is our real identity. So from that point, if you can understand that, and if you can't understand it, if we can at least appreciate that reality, then we can begin to hear the other instructions. And chapter 3 is officially called Karma Yoga. I like to call it the Get Real chapter, because karma yoga is a yoga. You know, there's Ashtanga yoga, there's the exercise yoga that a lot of people do. There's Jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. But karma yoga is the knowledge of doing in Krishna consciousness, the yoga of doing, that one's activities can bring one to self-realization. So I like to call it the Get Real chapter, because as far as the other processes of yoga, especially in Kali Yuga, practically speaking, they're not really possible. Like even the exercise yoga that people do, it's very good. It can help on some level to regulate the mind, to control the body. But it used to be in previous ages that this was the method of self-realization, by sitting in these particular yoga poses and meditating on the Supreme. So forget it, like that guy is doing. There's no way in this age that we're going to be able to do this. Actually, in this day and age, and Krishna also explains this in this chapter, to just live, we have to do something. We have to inhale and exhale. And these days, with all this mask business, that can be even a very controversial issue. Inhaling and exhaling. People are, demonstrating because they feel that they can inhale and exhale with the mask on. And probably we probably are not doing that as efficiently as we should. So just living, we have to exhale and inhale. And even that is doing something. The Jains wear a mask on a regular basis because they don't want to inhale too many microbes and cause unnecessary violence. And no one can refrain from doing something even for a moment. That we know. And if you have children, you know that very, very well. Restraining the senses is another way that some people think of self-realization. Self-realization means that I restrain my senses. But if we do that and dwell on sense objects, it'll get us nowhere. We see this yogi, he's performing great austerity, but he's meditating on money. I don't know if you can see clearly, but in the center of himself, instead of Krishna, he's meditating on money. Maybe he's meditating on how much money he can make by pretending to be a yogi. So that really gets us nowhere, and it's artificial. Ultimately, we can, even if we become perfect at restraining our senses, at one point, the senses will become active again. And there are so many stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam of yogis who restrain their senses and then became attracted by sense gratification. I forget the yogi's name, but this one yogi was performing his austerities for probably thousands of years. And then beautiful Menaka went by, and the sound of her ankle bells attracted him, and all of his austerity went out the window. So this is not really the way to advance in spiritual life. It's temporary. Ultimately, it is temporary. So Krishna has a much better solution. He says, do your prescribed duty, but as an offering, a sacrifice for Vishnu. And right after giving that instruction, it's very interesting because the first teaching that comes along is the food that we eat should be an offering to Vishnu. That's the first teaching, practically, that Krishna gives after he says that we should do our prescribed duty. So why is that? because eating is very, very basic. It's extremely basic. Someone has a dog. Oh, it's Sanjeevananda. That's okay. Eating is very, very basic. I was listening the other day to Radhanath Swami, his book Journey Home, which is an amazing book. If any of you can get that, very inspiring. Journey Home by Radhanath Swami. And he was talking about his experiences before he became a devotee. He went into the Himalayas and he met all these yogis. And he said this one yogi taught him how to eat out of the forest, whatever is in the forest. So even these yogis who perform great austerities in the forest, they have to eat. At one point, they have to eat something. So the first teaching is that the food we eat should be an offering to Vishnu. And Prabhupada himself, I've heard him actually say this a couple of times in lectures that I've listened to recently, that self-realization begins with the tongue. That sounds a little strange, but it's true, because if we can't control the tongue, then all of the other senses will become agitated at one point or another. And if we try to perform false austerities with the tongue, then we're even in more trouble. So how to control the tongue properly without being artificial? We make what we eat an offering to Krishna. So that can actually be very complex and very elaborate, like offering the prasadam that we see on the plate here was probably offered first to Krishna on the altar. That's very elaborate with a lot of very beautiful rituals and prayers. Or it can be as simple as, my dear Lord Krishna, please accept this food that I am about to eat. Or we can follow the instruction that Srila Prabhupada has given us, and simply by offering obeisances to the spiritual master, we can offer what we eat. It's very simple. It's actually a matter of consciousness. When I became a devotee, I was brought up Catholic, and we always used to say, bless us, O Lord, in these thy gifts, which we are about to receive. Through thy bounty and through Christ our Lord, amen. That's actually a form of offering what we eat. It's recognizing that this is coming from Krishna, and that before I consume this, I should recognize that connection. Prabhupada, I had to share this with you because I was listening to a tape. Prabhupada said this. We are giving you prasadam by eating. You will one day become Krishna conscious simply by eating. As you take foodstuff from an infected area, you become infected with some disease. So this is Krishna infected prasadam. You take it, and one day you will be diseased with Krishna consciousness. So this process of offering our food is very, very important. It can be very, very simple. And you can also, I'm not going to go into the details now, but you can go online, Google, how does Krishna devotee offer his food? And you will get very good instructions. So the consciousness of a self-realized soul is that he has no personal self-centered motivation. No reason for not doing his duty, and therefore no need to depend on anyone. No. Sounds quite negative. So does that mean that this person becomes like a statue in the park. Like we see this picture, I think it's even a picture of Lenin. It's a picture from Russia. So we have a statue and we have a lady pretending to be a statue. No, that's not what is meant by no. So let's talk about this a little bit more. Krishna explains actually how a person in spiritual consciousness will act. Whenever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So this is one way that a person can act in Krishna consciousness. Because we know that whatever great people do, we follow. I remember when I was 7 or 8 years old, I thought Davy Crockett was a great personality. So what did I do and what did all our friends do? We all got Davy Crockett hats. And we had our super duper special Davy Crockett guns. Now people are wearing Trump hats because some people think that Donald Trump is a great personality. And then we have people like Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. Why did people follow Mahatma Gandhi? Because he was actually a wonderful, amazing, great personality who read Bhagavad Gita every day. Srila Prabhupada did not really approve of his vision for Indian independence. He thought that we should be seeking independence from the material body. But still, Gandhiji very much respected and people followed him. He was a great man. And a devotee should act with no attachment to the results. That can be difficult. This is something that we have to keep practicing at. For most of us, it's something that we have to be consciously doing, because this is our nature in the material world. We do something and we get attached. And we should not disturb the minds of those who are fruitive and attached to the results. In the Christian tradition, you often will hear not to cast pearls before swine. That's it sounds a little strange, but that's what this means, actually. There's certain people we don't, it's actually better not to make the endeavor to try to explain Krishna consciousness to them. There are several situations where it was described how Prabhupada would be preaching to a group of people, and he could see that this group of people were not attentive. They were not in any way able to absorb what was being said. And very quickly, Prabhupada would say, chant Hare Krishna. He would tell the devotees, chant, begin the kirtan, because there is no point in explaining philosophy to people who are not in a suitable mentality to appreciate and understand. So when that could not take place, Srila Prabhupada would use the two other weapons to destroy Maya that he would have, prasadam and chanting the holy name. And those two purify the consciousness so that a person can actually receive instructions. So now we come to this very important, did I skip? No, I didn't. Finally, we come to verse 30. Krishna gives a summary and a conclusion. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works to me, with mind intent on me, and without desire for gain, and free from egoism and lethargy, fight. So Krishna sums it all up. The other instructions are preliminary. They are kind of additional instructions, but Krishna now says, if you want to act in transcendental consciousness, surrender what you do to me and think of me while you're doing it without desire for gain and free from egoism and lethargy. Fight. There it is. And we can all do that. Every day we can get up and we can perform our activities in that consciousness. We can cultivate that consciousness. It doesn't matter if one is a pujari, like in this picture here, or if one is a travel agent, or if one is a chef, or if one is a housewife, a mother, a temple president. We can all offer what we are doing to Krishna. And we can meditate on Krishna. And we can cultivate that consciousness. It's Krishna's instruction. Now, of course, for someone like the pujari, the meditation is more direct, but it doesn't stop any single person from being able to be in that consciousness. So one may think, well, if I'm a secretary for this person who has some kind of company, if I'm a travel agent, how can I offer that to Krishna? We can. Why not? Krishna accepts everything. Now, it does mean that we have to discriminate as to what we offer a little bit. So maybe if someone is in an occupation of being a butcher, he might want to change his occupation if he becomes a devotee, because offering that kind of service to Krishna becomes problematic. So we should try to align our lives, the work that we're doing, in such a way that we can offer to Krishna what we are doing. So this verse is actually so important that I copied the whole purport so that we can go through it. My voice is getting kind of squeaky. Jade, can you read this, please?
This verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhava Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duty, as if in a military discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord.
So we not only do our duties as an offering to Krishna, but we do our duties with complete dependence on Krishna, because that is actually our constitutional position. We talked in another class about Sanatan Dharma, how our eternal Dharma, our eternal constitutional position is to be a servant, whether we serve the Coca-Cola company or whether we serve Krishna. That's our position, to be a servant. Whether one is a human being or an ant, that's our constitutional position. And so we also, when Srila Prabhupada was here, the Beatles became very much involved with the Krishna consciousness movement. And at one point, George Harrison wanted to give this all up. And Prabhupada said, no, you continue what you're doing, but you do it for Krishna. And so we have, so many wonderful songs that the Beatles gave us, like My Sweet Lord, because he understood, okay, I will do this for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada was a family man his whole life. He had a drugstore. He was meditating on how he had to do this. He had a family to take care of. He had to make money and support his family. How to do this? So he had a Ayurvedic, I think it was, I don't know if it was Ayurvedic or not. Anyway, it was a natural medicine business. And his whole life, that's what he did. And at one point he realized, oh, I will develop this business very nicely so that I can simultaneously take care of my family and have enough money to help Gaudiya Math, to help my spiritual master and his mission develop nicely. So there is never an impediment to being Krishna conscious. Anu Sanjeev, can you read, please?
Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Sitasa.
So here Arjuna says in the purport, Prabhupada writes, Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. This actually can be a dangerous statement if it's taken out of context, or if the conditioned soul is accepting instruction from someone who is not a pure devotee, who is equally entangled in the modes of material nature. Like these days, we have this horrible thing of suicide bombers. They're following an instruction. They're not even considering the pro or con of it. They're just accepting that. And then there's so-called spiritual leaders who convince their disciples that having sex with them is God's desire. So a conditioned soul must actually be very sincere and evaluate instruction according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Srila Prabhupada himself always encouraged his disciples to know the philosophy and the scriptures so we can understand the instruction of the spiritual master and we can accept it wholeheartedly, but with knowledge. Otherwise, we can easily be deceived, especially in this Kali Yuga. So Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He only had to execute his order. In the next sentence, Prabhupada, I highlighted, without personal consideration. So this was the quality of Arjuna executing this order. It's not that he was acting as a blind fool, but he was doing it. He was executing the order without personal consideration. In the beginning, he had those personal considerations. Oh, my family, this and that and the other. But Krishna is telling him again, do it without personal consideration. So next on the list is Corey. Can you read? Oh, sorry, I have to go to the next page. Okay.
I don't even know that first name there.
Nirashi.
Hirashi means that one has to act on the order of the master, nor should one ever expect fruit of results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Maya, or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not.
Uh-oh, we lost you. Certainly, he does not claim proprietorship over anything. So can you imagine if this is Ishavashyam, that everything we do, we remember that everything is ultimately the property of God. So we just treat everything as actually as if it's been loaned to us. If someone lends me their phone or their computer, I'm going to use it very, very carefully. And I'm going to treat it very nicely. I'm not going to abuse it. And I'm going to return it when I no longer need it. So in the material world, this is how we should act. We offer everything to Krishna and we don't claim actual proprietorship over anything. In the beginning of the movement, we lived a lot more. Now, many of us have our own apartments, but we lived a lot more as a community. And if you got a Bhagavad Gita or a Sri Upanishad or your Bhagavad Gita could disappear very quickly. Someone else would just pick it up and read it and then forget to return it. So instead of writing at the beginning of the book, this belongs to, we would write in the care of, and then put our name. And I often think about that. And I often do that myself. If I'm putting my name in something, I won't write this belongs to. I'll write in the care of. Important consciousness.
Beautiful.
Yeah, very nice. So next on the list is Raj.
This consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one may become vigyat jwara, or without feverish mentality or lethargy. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness, as described above. That will lead one to the path of liberation.
So everyone, according to his quality, his position, whether one is a pujari or a street sweeper, whether one is a sannyasi or a householder, we have to act as if nothing is mine, even our own children. We should be remembering that they're not my children, that Krishna has given me these children to take care of so that I may help them become liberated. Even my husband, I say my husband, or the husband will say my wife. It's not actually my husband. He belongs to Krishna. And Krishna has put us together so that we can inspire each other in Krishna consciousness. So these are such important instructions. And if you can memorize this verse, I really encourage all of you to try to memorize this very important verse. And then, just to end this verse, put the cherry on the cake, as the expression goes, I'm showing you here a picture of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the father of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. You see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in the top corner. He has a mustache. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. So here we have Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who, with his large family, he was a court magistrate his whole life. And yet, oh my goodness, such a devotee, a spiritual master in our disciplic succession, and so dedicated his whole life to Krishna consciousness and to spreading Krishna consciousness. I don't have the scope or the time here to get into all of his contributions, but completely amazing. So there is no impediment to devotional service. Then, after this very important verse, Krishna begins to give more detail about how to act like this. He says that a devotee acts without attraction or repulsion. Repulsion, we reject things unnecessarily. Attraction, we want something I want something for myself. A devotee is actually neutral. And so Krishna gives the instruction that it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duty, even though they may be faulty, than another's duties. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty. For to follow another's path is dangerous. As I was looking for pictures, I came across this one. This is another version of this instruction. Do your duty, that is best. Leave unto the Lord the rest. Very, very true. Krishna didn't just give this instruction once. He gave it several times in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works to me with mind intent on me and without desire for gain and free from egoism and lethargy, fight. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duty for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain unattached. So let's be honest. What is described here is actually a very high standard. And Arjuna was definitely thinking this way. How can I possibly do things? How can I possibly act without attachment? I see something, I want it. I want to enjoy. People, we see these days, people take pictures with their phones everywhere they go. They see something beautiful. They want to enjoy that again. So they take a picture. We all do it. I do it, you know. So this is our position. There was actually, back in the 60s, there was one poet, his name was John Lewis. He wrote, our age bereft of nobility, how can our faces show it? I look for love. My lips stand out, dry and cracked for want of it. We're all looking for something. We want to enjoy, we want to be attracted by something and love and enjoy that person or that thing. Oh, it is well, my poem shall show the need for it. Again we go, driven by forces we have no control over. What did Arjuna say? O descendant of Vishnu, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? This is our unfortunate position in the material world. So what is driving us? What is this, what do we call this? Very important to define and to understand what a problem is. Because if we don't, then it's very difficult to be disentangled from that problem. So Krishna gives the answer very succinctly. It is lust only, Arjuna. Not it's lust and it's this and it's that. No, it's a lust only, Arjuna. We are all driven by this lust, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion, later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. This is the process. I put it in a picture because it's important that we can actually see that process. We lust after something. Our eyes pop out and the tongue hangs out. Dogs do it. We don't do it so visually. Whenever I see a dog, with his tongue hanging out, wanting something, I remember that I'm doing that too. I just don't look like that picture, but I'm doing that. And then when that lust is not completely satisfied, what happens? We become angry. If you analyze yourself, when you become angry, you will see that it is due to unsatisfied lust. Unsatisfied lust doesn't necessarily mean food or sex. There are so many ways in which the living entity is lusty. And when that lust is not satisfied, we become angry. Yesterday, I became angry. And then shortly after, I sat down to finish what I had to do with this class. And I came to this slide, and I remembered, oh, I was angry. Why was I angry? What was I lusting after that I couldn't get? And I understood. And then I became much happier because I had a perspective. I could understand what was going on. And then that wrath turns to illusion. Just like we have our gentleman here. He's looking at him, he's completely bewildered. Oh my God, where are my pants? Do I have any pants? How did I lose my pants? Why don't I have pants on? How long have I been walking around without pants? Why do I need pants anyway? Dogs run around without pants. Who am I anyway? Am I supposed to be wearing pants or am I supposed to be wearing a skirt? These days, people question like that. Am I supposed to be wearing pants or a skirt? And actually, when we come to ask that question, who am I? Then that's the beginning of the end of our bewilderment. Because when we ask that question, Krishna fulfills all desires. So we are beginning the path of self-realization. Who am I? What am I doing here? How did I get here? How did I get out? And this is us. This person here, he's in a maze, he's completely bewildered, but at the end of the maze, there is a light. And the light of Krishna's instruction can actually, if we follow, we have a chance of getting out of this big maze. So in pursuance of understanding, lust becomes wrath, wrath becomes illusion. Krishna gives detailed descriptions of lust. Who didn't read? Brandon, you didn't read. Can you read, please? Brandon doesn't want to read. Okay. Damodar, you read, please. Can you?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Thus a man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curbed this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization.
So to regulate the senses is actually very important so that we can have a basic understanding of how the sense objects or dull matter, the mind, the intelligence, and the soul relate to each other. Here we have all of those elements in the picture. The soul, the intelligence, the mind, and dull matter. But it's a little helter-skelter. In this kind of situation, it's very easy for the dull matter, the sense objects, to simply control the mind. If I could have made this into a video, I could have blown up that dull matter. And then the mind can take over too much, and then the intelligence is not being used. The mind is our power of discrimination. But if the mind is not guided by good intelligence, then that discrimination, do I do this or that, can become a source of bondage. That's why in Bhagavad Gita it says that the mind that is controlled is a source of liberation, and the mind that is uncontrolled brings one to hell. So in this kind of situation, the lineup, the relationship is not in proper order. So Krishna reminds us here how we can get all of these elements that are part of our world and part of our nature into proper order. The working senses are superior to dull matter. The mind is higher than the senses. The intelligence is still higher than the mind, and the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So if we have all of those in a proper relationship, then we can live as yogis in the material world. Then we don't become entangled with the sense objects. The mind becomes not our enemy, but our best friend. And the intelligence becomes guided by the soul. How is the intelligence guided by the soul? The intelligence is guided by the soul by receiving instructions from Bhagavad Gita, from Krishna, from the spiritual master. And the more we get in touch with that intelligence, the more we know, first of all, we have to hear it, and then we have to assimilate and remind ourselves of those instructions. And then our intelligence can actually be guided by our soul. This actually reminds me, there's a movie. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's called Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all. I think some of you have already seen it. I can see smiles on your faces. If you haven't seen it, Google it and please watch it. It's an amazing movie. And in that movie, it's of course the story of Srila Prabhupada, bringing Krishna consciousness to us his whole life. There's one devotee very early on in the movement at 26 2nd Avenue. It's actually one of my husband's favorite parts of the movie. He's trying to explain Krishna consciousness, and he says to the reporter, you see, we're actually functioning high on a low level, but mostly people function low on a high level. And Harisari Prabhu says he has no idea what he's saying. But even though that devotee, he was still quite confused, didn't understand the philosophy very well, still, he understood that we need to be guided by the soul. And then we can come out of that confused condition. So, the last verse of this chapter. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind and intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher self, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. And of course, the conquering of lust is a lifelong process. It's not something that happens in 1 minute. For most of us, it's a matter of practicing. And we have Krishna's instructions to practice. So this chapter of Karma Yoga is very, very important for us, because for most of us, 99.99%, we're not yogis. We can't just sit and meditate. We can't even just sit and chant the holy name. Prabhupada said we shouldn't be cheap and imitate Haridas Thakur and think that we can chant lakhs and lakhs of names every day. We have to engage our bodies and our minds in service. So these instructions are very important to keep us focused in Krishna consciousness. So, are there any comments or further instructions or questions? Oh, good. Shay's asking a question.
I guess I was just wondering, sometimes like Arjun didn't really in the beginning know what his duty was. And
Yes.
then he had Krishna to help guide him. But what if we don't really know what our duty is, but we don't have a guru to guide us? Like, how can we navigate those situations correctly?
Well, that's a very good question, Jade. Actually, all of us have a spiritual master. We're just, some of us are not, have not met him. All of us here today have actually met our spiritual master on some level. For some of us, the acceptance of the spiritual master may not be formal. For some of us, the acceptance of the spiritual master may not be complete. But the instructions are there from the spiritual master on how we can execute Krishna consciousness. Even by the example that Srila Prabhupada gave of his own life. He met his spiritual master and he actually didn't take initiation until many years later. And even after he met his spiritual master, he was thinking, oh, I'm a householder, I have a family. I can't just leave my family and go and live in the math and be a brahmachari. So he went back to taking care of his family. But one day, several years later, when some of these brahmacharis happened to come into his store, he was so happy to see them. And he said, he knew who they were. And he said, oh, Bhaktisiddhanta, you're disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. I met him so many years ago, and I remember what he told me. And I have been thinking of how I would like to serve him. Even that is service for the spiritual master. So it may be that someone is a devotee living in the temple, and they can approach the temple president and get a direct instruction. Prabhu, I would like you to take charge of the book distribution. Okay, that's a very specific, definite instruction. Another person may be in a position where they have a family and they have a job. So as they do their daily work, they can offer their work to Krishna. And they can offer some of their Lakshmi to Krishna, some of their money that they make to Krishna. And in that way, when they're doing their work at the office, their work becomes an offering to Krishna. So in whatever way we can, we should be meditating on how I can offer, how I can do some little service. We're hearing and chanting. That is an offering to the spiritual master and to Krishna. One devotee remarked how Srila Prabhupada would always say thank you. He would go somewhere and he would give a class and he would say thank you. Why was he saying thank you? What did these people do for him? Nothing. But he was thanking them. Why? Because they were taking part in devotional service. They were doing devotional service for Krishna. And on behalf of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada was thanking them. He was grateful for their service. Whatever little service was done, he was accepting. So there is really no impediment. At the same time, as Krishna reveals in our life, more specific and more directly connected ways that we can engage in service, we should take that very seriously. And one might say, how will I know? We will know. If we have a desire, Krishna will reveal in the heart. This is your chance to do more service for Krishna. Do it. And as we do that, then Krishna reveals more and more and more. So, any more? I hope that answers a little bit.
Haribol.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Yes, Raj.
Haribol. Very nice
Haribol.
question from Jade Mataji. It is a very deep question actually. It was always boggling my mind too when I was new to Krishna consciousness. I'm not initiated. I don't have a guru who's gonna guide me. So this is a very valid question. But I found an answer for that doing Bhagavatam classes and whatnot. Devotee association, Jade Mataji, is very important. Devotees are so full of mercy that that mercy comes directly from Krishna to Guru through devotees to you. So devotee association is the best part of for us, especially for the newcomers right now. But even devotees love devotees, even if they are there from ever, they love devotees. And it's you will feel it by the time how merciful devotees are when you are in association with devotees. They reveal so many good things to you that your mind will be enlightened, and you are in trouble or some kind of questions that you have. Of course, Krishna will help you when you chant sincerely. Krishna is gonna reveal the path for you. But devotees are full of mercy, so try also, please be in contact with as much as devotees as you can, and that will be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. That is very, very important. And Srila Prabhupada so much stressed that. Why do we think that Srila Prabhupada established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness? Prabhupada actually said one time, people who like motorcycles, they hang out, he didn't use that word, but they associate with people who like motorcycles, or because they inspire each other. So we associate with devotees, we inspire each other in our Krishna consciousness. I think Ghosh Thakur probably has a comment.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can I hear you? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. It's a very good question. No, from our literature, there's the three where you can get direction. It's like there's person that through the sadhus, the devotees, through a guru they have, and but also the astras or the scriptures. So by reading scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavata, get some instruction. By associating with the devotees with more instruction, and you don't have a guru that we always have guru is the original guru is in our heart. Krishna is in our heart, and he hears and he knows where we're at. He knows what we want. So when we some impulses to do something, it's coming Krishna in our heart. So this guru is always there. We may not be able to follow him because we can't hear him because we're conditioned by our mind and senses. But there's an indication that the guru that's inside our heart guides through our intelligence. Anyway, there's a story in Bhagavatam and Canto that Uddhava says Krishna on a person who was conditioned in the material world. How can he come enlightened if he's all himself? And Krishna explained one time there was a Yadu, he was studying around the world, and he saw a saintly person enlightened, and Yadu asked him, how did he become enlightened? How did he become self-realized? And the person says, simply by observing the material world, by being self-realized. He said, in the material world, there's different lessons you can take observing the material world, things that happen to you in the material world. And he gave different gurus, the material, like a pigeon, the mountain, the sun, the moon, the ocean, the wasp, the spider, the little girl. There's so many, there's 24 gurus. They are all in the material world, not even spiritual gurus, material. They are in the material world. So there's such as if a person is intelligent, you know simply by observing the material world and what happens to him in the material world, able to spiritual progress. Like myself, before Krishna consciousness, I became very miserable, and at one point I thought, gotta be something wrong. I'm wrong, walking down the wrong path. That's why I'm suffering. This realization didn't come from a guru. We didn't have any guru. It came by my own observation, my situation, material, and I became guided by my own intelligence, which I'm also from Krishna within. In other words, to make short, you may not have a guru now that you can see talk to a initiated guru, but you have guidance from your own intelligence. Because right now, you choose to come to consciousness, already associating with devotees. This is your own choice. It's a sign that you have spiritual intelligence. And then with this solution, you get guided. And then read the scripture, get more guidance. And one day, maybe you'll meet this kind of guru that you like, and you'll be able to initiate from him. But don't hurry. This the purification as far as you can go on your own by these three guidelines. And one day, if you're ready, Krishna will send the person you need to take initiation from. Anyway, that's like a short description of a few items.
Thank you, Ghosh Thakur Prabhu. What you said is so much truth. You know, you were saying how the little girl, the spider, anyone can be guru, and if we see through the eyes of scripture, then anyone can be guru. That's but if we don't, then we can get in trouble. We can see the spider and simply become fearful. Or we can see a little girl playing and we can just think, oh, the foolish play of it. We can just think, oh, just a little girl playing. But seeing through the eyes of scripture, we can accept Guru as Krishna sends to us, because Krishna is within the heart, like you said. And so from within the heart, if we have a desire, Krishna will send Guru. Thank you. Thank you, Ghosh. Thakur.
One more thing I will like to add. It's very late, but I will still like to add. ISKCON Vancouver, every day there is a Bhagavatam class from 8 to 9. So you can join. If you go on ISKCON Vancouver website, there is their Zoom code and their password. So it's very enlightening actually. There are so many beautiful devotees over there. Even Srila Prabhupada devotee Radhika Mataji is there, and so many other nice devotees who are so enlightening in these classes. It's beautiful. I will certainly ask every one of you every day, like not a single day missing, 7 days a week from 8 to 9 o'clock. So this is this very nice class. So you can join even on weekends. You can join. So there is beautiful instruction in that class. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Mataji,
Very good, Raj.
on a slightly different note, I liked very much your mention of the fact that it improves our ability to receive when we do the prasadam and the chanting and the scripture reading. And we have been blessed with the association, especially in the Sharanagati Valley, where we met beautiful devotees. And actually, sometimes when we have a situation in life and we take an example of perhaps someone out there whom we have associated with as to how they would act in that situation. And it serves us as an example of how that situation could be better dealt with. So again, thank you for all the notes and all the suggestions.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your association, Sanjeev. So all of you have a very good evening and a good night. And we will see each other next week. Damodar Prabhu, you have
Hare Krishna.
Vishwadika?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Vishwadika, I would just like to speak to you
After?
personally.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll sign out.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare
Bye.
Krishna.
See you next week. Hare
Bye.
Krishna.
Hare
Haribo Raj, Haribo
Haribo.
Sanjeev, Anu, Corey.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Can you stop the recording? On the top left, you should have
Yes.
an option to press.
Oh, now you're teaching me how to do this.